Today on Locked On Red Wings, turnovers prove costly as Detroit loses 2-1 against Boston on Saturday.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. Scotty's the host over at Locked On Tigers, as well as a freelance journalist for the Detroit News, and I am a color commentator for Oakland University D1 men's hockey. And unfortunately, we got another loss to cover, and those are becoming increasingly less fun as each one transpires because they are outnumbering the wins. And we'll talk about what led to this loss. But first, I got to let you guys know today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet and get $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Scotty, first thought on this hockey game. I don't know. This is a weird one. It's not a weird one, but it is a weird one. I don't know. I feel meh overall. I guess that's my first thought. I was going to throw it to you. I'm sorry, but I just kept talking. It's how I am. My first thought's meh. Like, I felt like the effort was there, but the execution was really sloppy, and I think that's my first thought.
Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. Mine was kind of that you let one get away. Like I don't know about should have. They still got outshot by 10, but like they were in this game and had every opportunity to win this hockey game. For throughout all 60. Like it wasn't even like, they got absolutely punched in the mouth in the first half and then kind of had to come back like we saw so much last season or vice versa, right? Like we didn't see them do really well early and then try to hold on to a lead, which they're terrible at. Like this was legitimately, they were playing neck and neck hockey for most of this game, if not all of this game. And I think, my first thought was when the final buzzer sounded was just like, I had really like you could have won that game. You kind of let one get away. And when you're in a position that the Wings are in, where you're trying desperately to scrap together any wins you can, those ones sting even more.
I mean, you look at the like how this game progressed. You're right. It was neck and neck through the first two periods. Shots were tied at 15 after two. Through two periods, the Red Wings actually had the stronger of the two periods. They had more shot attempts in the first, although the expected goals still leveled out to about 51% for the Red Wings. Second period was even 58% and expected goals for. But then the third period, the Bruins just took over. I mean, the Bruins outshot the Red Wings at 5-on-5. Was it 13-4? Red Wings had 4 shots on net at 5-on-5 in the third period. And, shot attempts were 65% for the Bruins. The expected goals was 76% for the Bruins. When the going got tough, like the Red Wings just couldn't. And they had their opportunities. Like you said, like Andrew Kopp had that in all alone on the goalie and couldn't finish. The crossbar with the empty net. Like they had plenty of opportunities. But the problem is like, and we'll talk about it, like we got to get to our difference makers, but the Red Wings could not buy a goal. It's either they're on one hand, they're not getting enough shots because they don't possess the puck enough, but when they do get their opportunities, they make that one extra pass, and then they whiff. Like, I mean, we saw a shot go right past DeBrincat. It was deflected on his way to him, but it's just like nothing is going their way in the offensive zone right now. They struggle to score more than 2 goals in any given game. They scored one in this game rather. They scored 2 against the Islanders, and it's just like their offense is non-existent. It's really, really depressing. And when you look at the difference makers in this game, I really think that the reason they lost this game was because of turnovers. It felt like every single time the Red Wings got the puck, their passes are either missing the mark or they're just flat out giving it to the other team. And I mean, that's what led to the goal against. The second goal against, rather, is Tarasenko went to clear the puck, and he didn't get anything on it, and he just went right back to the point, and they maintained possession. Edvinsson had 6 giveaways in this game. Edvinsson, who has been overall very good, but clearly still working on some of the kinks, and one of his big flaws so far is protecting the puck. He's been liable to give the puck away a few times every single game. He had 6 in this game. As a team, the Red Wings had 26. And I saw Jeff Petrie give 2 juicy giveaways as well. Like, this was a team problem in this game. For me, the reason you lost this hockey game is you couldn't take care of the puck when you had it. And I think that's clear as day when you look at the statistics and when you watch the game.
Yeah, man, I agree with you. And I think that's again what made this one so frustrating is like they had opportunities, they were applying pressure, there was decent zone entry, and then it was decent zone entry when they had the puck on their stick. It was a lot of giveaways in the neutral zone too, man. Like just they got they got dominated on center ice, and that's not a recipe for success too terribly often. And that is why, despite all of the opportunities and all of the chances they had to get back in the game, they really just weren't able to get over the hump there.
No, absolutely not. And if you wanted to, list a secondary difference maker, I mean, I was going to note it. You have one? Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, for me, you look at the box score. I think special teams is kind of a layup.
What I was going to say.
Like, yeah, like this is a team that so far this year, even when they have gotten outplayed or outshot by 30, like they've still been able to keep games close or just straight up win games by good goaltending and scoring on the power play. And we all know that their penalty kill has been one of the worst like we've ever seen so far. And they gave up a penalty kill goal, and they went 0 for 4 on the power play. And given how this team has won games this year, that is just not gonna that's not gonna get you wins. Like that is the only reason their record even looks the way it does is power play and goaltending. And so when you have both of your special teams, the penalty kill stays awful and the power play goes over, you're not going to come out on top too terribly often.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I was going to say. The special teams, you rely heavily on the special teams to win your hockey games, primarily the power play, because we know the penalty kill is atrocious. And that's 2 consecutive games now where the power play didn't come through. And they had 4 opportunities in this hockey game, including with the goalie pulled at the end on a 6-on-4. Now, granted, Seider hit the crossbar, and that's just also one of the things this team has no luck with. There's been like 3 times where the Red Wings have had the opportunity to score with the goalie pulled, and it either goes off the post or Kane sent one off the post. Remember, that came right out to their guy. I think DeBrincat missed a wide open net that went right to their guy, and they fired it down for an empty net goal. They've had 0 luck with the goalie pulled. But yeah, special teams is the secondary difference maker for sure, because you knew you were going to give up a special teams goal. You knew you were going to give one up. And honestly, it's just par for the course. But like if you watch how that goal unfolded, like Seider's driving to the net, he's got his guy covered and tied up, and they just fire it into the crowd, and it goes off of Seider and in. Like that's bad luck. But right now, nothing's going your way. If they didn't have bad luck, they'd have no luck at all. Nothing they're doing, like they could be playing the penalty kill 100% correct, and stuff like that has been happening. So you need to rely on your power play to overcome that. And the power play, for what it's worth, they had a couple power plays where they set up in the offensive zone, they made a lot of passes, but they just, the one extra pass every single time trying to make that beautiful backdoor goal. And it's just like, dude, you have the puck with an opportunity to shoot and create chaos. That's how Kasper got his power play goal just a couple days ago. Like, just create chaos. And this is why I'm a quality hater now. I'm a quantity guy. I've switched teams. I'm just getting so tired of watching them pass the puck along the perimeter, waiting for the perfect opportunity to present itself. And like, granted, their power play is top 10. I don't know if it's still top 5 after the 2 games without a power play goal, but it's a top 10 power play in the league. But I mean, at a certain point, dude, just gotta shoot it. You have a lane, shoot it, and go for a rebound. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's a big thing on 5-on-5 for this team too, as we are very, very aware as well. It's just, I think that those are pretty clearly the 2 biggest reasons you lost was turnovers, probably first and foremost, and giveaways, and then not being able to come through on either side of special teams, which is kind of the only way you've won so far.
Absolutely. Scotty, we're going to head to a quick break. When we return, we will discuss our notable performers, and then we'll talk, too, about the Monty getting hired in St. Louis, as well as a brief preview of a team I don't want to talk about. Stay tuned.
Favorite team.
Locked On Red Wings. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel. Bet because right now new customers can bet $5 and get 150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Segment 2, Lockdown Red Wings podcast. Scotty, I was one win away from winning $40 on a parlay, and then Ole Miss had to lose to good old FSU. So that was sick.
Yeah, that was a wild game.
Or Florida, rather. Sorry.
I bet on Florida, so I don't feel bad for you.
Yeah, I would have won $40. But Florida had to come out with the upset. Ole Miss had to let me down. Every other team on the parlay hit, but, here we go.
The SIFs, baby.
Scotty, notable performers in this hockey game. Obviously, difference makers being special teams and the sheer amount of giveaways, 26 in this hockey game. But other stuff happened as well, good and bad. What do you got for us?
We could talk about the Raymond goal. It was a beauty. I think that one of the big things for this offense is going to be him scoring goals, which sounds super Captain Obvious and not like it's very hard hitting analysis, but
groundbreaking.
The dude has been dang near point a game without scoring goals. And I think the thought is just if you can get him, we're not even asking for a 40 goal season or anything like that. If you can even get him relatively going here, and if the playmaking doesn't drop off in spite of it, then you're talking about a guy that really could be, point a game, even push 90 points this year.
Well, we talked about it last episode when he scored the game winner against the New York Islanders. He's going to score a lot more goals if that pipeline between Larkin and Raymond starts flowing back the other way. And this is, it happened again. Larkin got the secondary assist. I believe Tarasenko got the primary. Let me double check on that, make sure I got that correct. Yeah, Tarasenko got the primary. That top line, passes have to be going all between all three of them if they're all going to keep scoring goals. Raymond here was the one who received the pass, and he's a shooter. We learned that last year. He can shoot the puck, and it was a nice goal, beautiful goal. And shout out to Moritz Seider, nice breakout by him. He skates it through the neutral zone before giving it over to Dylan Larkin, who carried it in. Seider had to break the puck out himself in order for this play to develop with less than a minute left in the first period. But, it was a nice play, and the top line continues to be the only source of offense on this hockey team. That being said, though, Vladimir Tarasenko did get the assist in this game, but this is another game where I thought he struggled. And I don't know. Prashant's going to be coming out. He teased it. Check out Prashant Iyer on social media, Blue Sky. I think he's primarily where he's posting now, but he might still post it on Twitter. The article he's writing up about why Tarasenko is struggling, and he hinted at it, and I think that may be a big reason as to why, but a lot of it might have to do with the side that he's playing on, because we talked about it when he got signed by the Detroit Red Wings. He was going to have to play on his natural side, his left side, as a left-handed shooter when he's played primarily his entire career on the right side, because he is a shooter. So if you're a shooter as a winger, you want to play on your offside, because then you open up the net a lot more when you're shooting on your forehand. So I do wonder if that's part of it, is him just trying to adjust to playing on his offhand. I know that he did that with Ottawa last year, but Ottawa wasn't good last year either. Granted, neither is Detroit this year, but you see my point where you wonder if maybe it is him struggling to play on a side where primarily the entirety of his career he has not. And he had that giveaway that led to the goal against in this third period. Now, I'm not trying to say that one for one that's the reason why, but, you do have to wonder if, maybe part of it is age, right? Part of it is the lingering injuries, because he's had injury issues throughout his entire career, but he has not been an effective player for the Detroit Red Wings. And at this point, I don't have confidence that he can play in the top six on the left-hand side.
Which is a huge deal and a massive problem, right? Was he the biggest acquisition of the offseason?
Unless you count Patrick Kane, who also notably hasn't really done a whole heck of a
lot.
Right.
That's a huge deal, man. You and with how much this offense has struggled, how nice would it be to have a 30-goal scorer, Vlad Tarasenko? That would go a heck of a long way. And now we're talking about, Tyler Mott's getting top 6 minutes because top line minutes even because, Vlad hasn't panned out and they've had to move around a lot of the top six. We talked going into the off season back in the spring. We talked about how one of the biggest team needs for the Wings going into the summer was to complete their top six. They had 5 out of 6 guys really kind of pinned down and penciled in as top 6 players on this team. They went out and got Vlad. Presumably that was to fill out the rest of the top 6, and he has been nowhere near that caliber of player. And that now you're just right back where you started, but with a big contract in your bottom 6. And that's not where anybody wants to be.
I mean, this is the bigger problem, too. Like we talk about, and we'll talk in segment 3 about the whole, Montgomery getting hired in St. Louis, the Derek Lalonde situation. We don't need to beat that over the head. We talk about that. We've talked about that so much the last few days. You all know where we stand on that at this point. But you look at free agency this last year, and it's a whole lot of whiffs by Steve Yzerman, and that's not a good thing. I mean, obviously Cam Talbot, he A++. I did not expect a goalie who's 37 to come in here and be a top 10 goaltender behind this team defense, and he has been. I mean, you talk about notable performer, another game of 9.35 save percentage or something along those lines. Let me double check here. He had a 9.31 save percentage in this hockey game. He's been incredible, and he's been given the Red Wings an opportunity to win. You talked about it in segment 1. The way this team wins hockey games is through power play goals and good goaltending. Well, they got one of those two things today, and that was Cam Talbot, who's been ever steady for the Detroit Red Wings in net. But outside of Cam Talbot, Gustafsson's been terrible. That second power play unit, that's something too. We talked about the special teams. We didn't mention the second power play unit couldn't get anything going, and Gustafsson had 2 turnovers in the defensive zone on their attempt to break out. Now, part of that is synergy, right? There's a very clear mandate. You drop the puck back, and the wingers who are breaking down low loop back up and come with speed, which, I mean, is so predictable, but that's a different conversation. But Gustafsson turned that puck over 2 times, and he hasn't done anything at 5-on-5. He doesn't have a single goal yet, and he was supposed to be your Gosta spare light. He was supposed to be marginally better defensively, marginally worse offensively, but it was supposed to even out. He's supposed to be your quarterback on power play, and he hasn't done anything. Then you look at Tarasenko, and he's been slow, hasn't provided a lot. You look at Patrick Kane, who you re-signed, and I don't know what's happened to Patrick Kane, but he's lost a visible step between last year and this year. Who have you brought in besides Cam Talbot that's been any good? Tyler Mott's been fine, but you were expecting a bottom 6 forward from him, and he's been good in that role, but he's not a game changer. I mean, who have you brought in besides Cam Talbot this offseason who has really impactfully made this team better?
That's the answer, yeah, and just Cam Talbot.
I know.
I mean, this is this is a bigger picture conversation than just this hockey game. But you're talking about an off season where you potentially brought in nobody of substance outside of a goaltender on a short deal, and then you're also talking about your head coach getting fired and pretty much everything has taken a step back despite having largely the same personnel. That is a lot of bad if that wasn't obvious.
Right, and that's why we are of the mindset, you can fire Lalonde because when heads need to roll, that's the first place you go. I think Max Boltman wrote it in his article last week. It's head coaches are oftentimes hired to get fired to protect the general manager, and that's an instance that's going to happen here. Lalonde probably does need to be fired because he's not maximizing on that potential this team does have. But also, you look at the free agent signings the last few years, who of these free agent signings is making an impact? It's Justin Hull's been bottom pair out of the lineup. Ben Sherratt is, they had an okay game besides Jeff Petrie turning it over. He individually, Sherratt had an okay game, but you're paying him to be a top 4 forward, and he hasn't been serviceable in that role. Yeah. Andrew Kopp's Kopp and Comfer, who we haven't talked about, is also having a horrible year. Yeah, he's been, both of those
down to 4C.
They both got demoted to the bottom 6 this season in lieu of Marco Kasper, which is kind of what you want, right? You want Marco Kasper to come in and have an impact.
Yeah, but you're
paying both those guys over.
Right, you want that because Kasper's been so good, not because Comfer and Kopp haven't.
Yeah, and I do think Kasper
signed when they put pen to paper. Both of them were signed to be the 2C.
Yeah, and now you're paying both of them over $5 million to be 3 and 4C, and it's just Jeff Petrie was a trade he's been bad. Granted, you didn't give anything up to get him. DeBrincat's been fine overall.
I guess. I mean, even
pro
DeBrincat, like, he hasn't been what you thought he was going to be. I don't know if that's necessarily all negative or all a bad
No,
thing. His
he's
his
still been a
defense,
top line scorer.
right? His defense and his passing has been a lot better. And this season, the goals so far, it's still pretty early, but the goals have come at a higher clip than they did last season so far. But yeah, I mean, even he, when we acquired him, we were talking about like, oh, can he push 40? Like, can he push
He's done it
40 goals
twice.
in a season? That wasn't even close to that last year. So.
Yeah, he was at 27, but at a career high in assists, which is why we cut him a little bit of slack.
Right.
Scotty, we're going to take another quick break, and when we return, we'll talk about Montgomery. Kind of a perfect segue to that because we are venting about the roster construction and coaching as it stands anyways. Might as well talk about it, so stay tuned to segment 3 of Lockdown Red Wings. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. And Prize Picks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly after your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Lost myself for a second.
Did you find yourself?
I'm still working on that. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, Jim Montgomery, who we did an episode on last week, talking and having the conversation about, is he the solution for the Red Wings behind the bench? We talked about the pros and the cons. Well, he is quickly off the list because the St. Louis Blues fired Drew Bannister and hired Jim Montgomery, all in the same tweet. It sounds like that was a discussion going on. So now we're at this stage, right? Montgomery's not available. You fire Derek Lalonde, then what? Do you just roll with an interim head coach? I mean, or do you just keep running it back with Derek Lalonde? This conversation hasn't really changed all that much, but you've just lost an option, a strong option to replace Derek Lalonde if you do go that route.
Yeah, I think really this comes down to just your faith in the other coaches on the roster. Like, you look at Boston, like that's what they did, right? It was just, we're going to promote somebody from within, interim, we'll see how they do. And then we'll, they even said outright publicly, they're like, we are not going to have a head coaching search until the offseason. So like, they're just going to roll the rest of the year with the coaches on the roster. And I think that would be probably what the Wings do. Like, there's not a huge head coach free agent market in November. Like, I think that's probably what the Wings would end up doing is just promoting somebody from within. And I'm not sure how over the moon or thrilled the fan base would be at that premise at the present moment. So I don't know. Like, you're really between a rock and a hard place. Like, I really don't know. I think it's probably the way to go to move on from him and go in a different direction. But I mean, there's not a ton of candidates just like sitting out there ready to, like come in and see immediate turnaround. I mean, maybe, but like, I don't know. I think you're really you're in a tough place at the present moment.
I just want to prepare people, right? Like, at this first disclaimer, I am not endorsing this decision, but I want it to be out there for a reality in which the Red Wings do not fire Derek Lalonde until the end of the season. Because if they view this season as lost, they say, okay, we're bringing in a new coach, firing our head coach. Even if you fire head coach and make Tanguay or Bugner your interim head coach, or you bring up Watson from the AHL and make him your interim head coach. Like, all that could do is put a spark in this team when they're already too far out of it to really make a conceivable push. ruining your draft position. If the Red Wings view it like that, they may decide, all right, we'll just use this as a year to develop young talent, like your guys like Edvinsson, Johansson, Berggren, and sell at the deadline and just get as high of a pick as we can, hopefully a top 10 pick. Because I'm sorry, you're not going to get the number 1 overall pick. This Red Wings team, no matter, even if they consider this a lost year and they quote-unquote tank, you have Seider, Edvinsson, Larkin, and Raymond on this roster, and they're too good to make this team a number 1 overall pick contender. But you'd be, in that instance, aiming for another top 10 pick. I am not endorsing this reality because I want this team to make the playoffs this year, even if the roster, everything we just critiqued about the roster, I don't care. It's year 6. I need the playoffs. I need to feel something late in the season. I need some excitement. So I'm all for bringing in a head coach and seeing if we can maximize this team's potential, because I do believe it's not being maximized. But you missed out on a good head coach in Montgomery. And now, he wasn't perfect. We listed that his system would kind of be running the same system that Lalonde's running, although Monty has a better track record of making that work, having a more effective message. I would like to see us move on from Lalonde, but the problems run so much deeper, and the Red Wings might view it as a lost season and just go for another top 10 pick and hold on to Lalonde until the end of the year. I don't know. This is not a fun situation. This was exactly what we wanted the Red Wings to avoid, right, Scotty? We talked about it last offseason. It was an important offseason because the Red Wings are at the stage of the rebuild where you either make or break. You either become a playoff team and a legitimate contender, or you get stuck in the frothy middle where you're just like, you're not the team that is making the playoffs, but you're not the team that's losing so much that you're getting a high draft pick. I don't want to be picking 13th, 14th, 15th every year like the Carolina Hurricanes and the Minnesota Wild did for a decade. Like, we need to either bottom out or take the leap. You can't get stuck in the middle.
Yeah, it would be an absolute joke if this team on November 25th was like, hey, we're going for a top 10 pick when they're really not that far out of it. Like, I completely reject the premise that is like on the table as the mindset of the organization. And if it is, then like everybody needs to go. Like, that's a joke. If you're at the trade deadline and you make that decision, that's a lot different. If it's, March and you make that decision, that's a lot different. On November 25th, when you're honestly only a few points out of a playoff picture still, that is an absolute joke. If you're like, oh yeah, we're going, like, this is just the lost season and we're just gonna burn through another year of Larkin's prime. We're gonna burn through year 1 of these contracts of the young guys we signed. Everybody's gonna get older a year and it just doesn't matter. That's a joke. So like, if we ever find out that is the mindset of the team before December, then like every single person that's a part of this organization needs to get completely removed from said organization. That being said, I don't think that it is that far-fetched for the loan to stick it out through the season. And I think it's much more to do with kind of what we talked about earlier, and just the fact that this, there's not a prime candidate out there. Now, if you just want to get him out of here to get him out of here, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think that there's certainly a conversation surrounding that. Like, just, we need a new face. But yeah, like if we ever learn that they just want to tank 6 weeks into the season, then like this is just that's just loser mentality. So like, I hope, but I genuinely believe that there's no chance that decision's being made this early. I do think that if a spark was to come from a firing, that it makes sense to do it sooner rather than later.
Let me then twist the knife even further. What if at the start of the season, the expectation within the front office and behind the bench wasn't to make the playoffs? I mean, we hear them talk, right? Yzerman always says the rebuild's not over until they win a Stanley Cup. And we hear Newsy talk, and he always tempers expectations, and we always were like, okay, that's just Newsy being Newsy. But if that's really the mentality, what if they went into the season and playoffs weren't the expectation, and just another year of development. Because Prashant also had another nice piece called "What's the Plan, Steve?" where he talks about how like the plan is what the plan always was in reality, and that was to wait until the youth get here. To maximize on Sider and Raymond's prime rather than Larkin's, which would be like 2027. And if that's the case, that's even more unacceptable, because then the horror story that was Ken Holland's prophecy comes true, and it is a 10-year rebuild. And that, I mean, we've seen teams, I mean, I don't know, man.
Well, I think for me, I'm not trying to like go to bat for the organization given how the year has gone or anything like that. But like, why would you sign Vladimir Tarasenko if the mindset was not to make the postseason? Like that there are moves that they did this offseason that just don't support that theory either. Like why would you go out and sign a 37-year-old Cam Talbot and a mid-30s Vlad Tarasenko if you were like going all in on if you were like this year just didn't matter like that that doesn't make any sense to me either. Like I think they just made poor decisions. Like I think they wanted to be a good team and take the momentum that they had at the end of last season, and they just signed the wrong people for arguably the second, maybe even third summer in a row, and here we are.
Yep. All right, I think it's a good place to end it. The team is mediocre at best, and we're just going to suffer through it with you guys. We'll talk about the good when the good happens, and we'll talk about the bad when it happens. Oh, hey, they play the Islanders tonight, so I'll be suffering again. Actually, we'll all be suffering, not just me, because we have to watch the Islanders play the Islanders. I mean, I don't got a preview for you. We played them twice. This is the third and final time. That's the good news that the Red Wings have to play them, but it's going to be another low-scoring affair where Sorkin nearly goalies us if he doesn't goalie us, and we'll be lucky to get 2 goals. So, there you go.
That's good, man. That's good.
I don't like New York teams. And Scotty, final thoughts?
We ball, baby.
We do ball. We'll be back with a new episode tomorrow, recapping another Islanders game. That's the 6th game we've played against New York teams, and it's not even the end of November. Have we played Buffalo yet? Buffalo's technically a New York team, too.
Did we play them once?
I think we've played them once.
I think we've played them once.
It's all starting to gel together. Let me look. Yeah, he lost 5-3 to the Buffalo Sabres, and then we won 2-1. So we've played Buffalo twice. We've played New York teams 8 times already.
Well, we can just get it out of the way early, and then
right. All right. See you guys tomorrow. Same time, same place. Your team every day.